Okay, get ready for what is, honestly, one of the wildest true stories to come out of World War II. This is the tale of priceless art, high-stakes deception, and a confession so insane it just had to be true. This is the story of the man who sold a fake masterpiece to the Nazis and did it to save his own neck.
All right, so picture this. It's 1945. The war in Europe is finally over, and in Holland, the hunt for Nazi collaborators is in full swing. And right in the middle of it all is this, well, kind of mediocre artist named Han van Meegeren. He's facing a terrifying accusation from a Dutch resistance hero, Joseph Pillar. The charge? Selling a priceless piece of Dutch heritage, a Vermeer painting, to Herman Goering himself, Hitler's right-hand man. The penalty for that kind of treason? Death.
So, the situation looks completely hopeless, right? Van Meegeren is trapped, the evidence is piling up, and he's staring down a death sentence. What possible defense could he even come up with? Seriously, just for a second, what would you do? Well, the answer he gives, it's one for the ages.
Okay, so let's go inside the interrogation room, because this is the moment where the entire story takes a hairpin turn that nobody, and I mean nobody, saw coming.
Investigator Joseph Pillar is absolutely relentless. This guy is a war hero, and he thinks he has an open and shut case. He's got evidence of Van Meegeren's super lavish lifestyle during the war, his connections to Goering's art dealer, all of it. As far as Pillar's concerned, he's got his traitor.
At first, Van Meegeren just denies everything, flat out. He insists he's a patriot, that it's all a big misunderstanding, but, Pillar is not buying it for a single second. He can tell this guy is hiding something huge.
So Pillar just lays it all out, right? He cranks up the pressure, making it crystal clear what's on the line here. With the very real threat of execution hanging over his head, Van Meegeren knows that simple denials just aren't going to cut it anymore. He has to confess, but not to the crime he's actually being accused of.
And boom, there it is, the bombshell confession. To avoid being executed for treason, Van Meegeren admits to a totally different crime, being one of the greatest art forgers in history. He claims the priceless national treasure he sold to the Nazis wasn't a treasure at all. It was a fake that he painted with his own two hands.
Now here's where it gets even crazier. Pillar and the authorities, they just don't believe him. They think it's the most desperate, ridiculous lie they've ever heard. Anything to escape the death penalty and get a lesser sentence for forgery. Come on, how could this one guy have fooled the world's leading art experts, let alone the entire Nazi high command?
So now, the tables have completely turned. Van Meegeren's life depends on proving he's a criminal, a master forger. He has to show everyone exactly how he cooked up a 300-year-old masterpiece out of thin air. So, let's break down the anatomy of this incredible con.
His method was just this brilliant mix of artistry and pure science. First, he'd find a cheap, worthless 17th century painting and scrape off the old paint, so the canvas itself was totally authentic. But the real secret sauce was the paint. He mixed his pigments with bakelite, a modern plastic, and then literally baked the finished painting in an oven. This made the paint rock hard, almost instantly mimicking centuries of aging. It could even pass the chemical tests they used at the time. Then, for the finishing touch, he'd roll the canvas over a pipe to create those perfect, tiny cracks you see on old paintings, and he'd even rub ink into them to simulate hundreds of years of dust and grime. It was just an unbelievably sophisticated process.
And the guy's obsession with detail was it was on another level. He was using authentic pigments, like genuine lapis lazuli, just like Vermeer would have. He made his own brushes out of badger hair to get the brush strokes just right. And get this, if the old canvas had wormholes in it, he would plug them with tiny corks before painting so they wouldn't get filled with new paint. This wasn't just a copy, it was a masterful, painstaking illusion.
But here's the thing, his real genius wasn't just in the physical technique. Van Meegeren knew that to really fool the experts, you had to get inside their heads first. And that brings us to the fascinating psychology of the whole con.
See, Van Meegeren was a master at exploiting something we're all prone to, confirmation bias. It's that tendency to see what we already believe is true. He knew the art world was desperate to discover a lost Vermeer. It was a matter of national pride, especially after the war. So he didn't just paint a forgery, he created a painting that fit a story the experts were already hoping to find. He gave them exactly what they were looking for, and they absolutely ate it up.
And this really says it all, doesn't it? When the critics thought a painting was by Van Meegeren, they dismissed it as cheesy or sentimental. But when they believed that exact same work was a long-lost Vermeer, suddenly it had elevated pathos and serenity. It was hailed as a masterpiece. It's just incredible. They saw what they wanted to see,
And what they wanted to see was genius.
Van Meegeren himself really put it best. He saw the experts not as these infallible judges of art, but more like kids who just wanted to believe that Santa Claus was real. Their desire for it to be a real Vermeer was just way stronger than their professional skepticism.
So as the truth about his forgeries started to leak out, something absolutely remarkable began to happen. The entire public narrative just completely flipped on its head.
To prove his insane story, Van Meegeren did something even more insane. He painted one last Vermeer while he was in jail, with reporters and officials watching his every move. And as the story of this incredibly audacious con artist spread, the public started seeing him in a whole new light. He wasn't the traitor who sold out his country's heritage. No, he was the clever trickster who swindled one of the most hated Nazis on the planet.
His popularity just exploded. The Dutch people absolutely loved him. He became this national folk hero, the brilliant artist who made a complete and utter fool of Herman Goering. Think about that for a second. The man who was facing execution for treason became the second most popular person in all of Holland, right behind the Queen herself. What an unbelievable turnaround.
In the end, Van Meegeren was sentenced to just 1 year in prison for forgery, a sentence he actually never served, because he died of a heart attack soon after the trial. But he leaves us with this really chilling thought. How many other so-called masterpieces hanging in the world's greatest museums aren't what they seem? It really makes you wonder, doesn't it?
And look, what we've gone over here today is really just scratching the surface of this incredible story. The full account, which is detailed in the book Traitor to Hero, is just this gripping courtroom drama. It's full of these intense psychological battles between Van Meegeren, the investigators, and all the art experts who just could not accept that they had been so completely and totally fooled.
So, if you really want to get inside the mind of this master forger and get the full, thrilling story of his trial and his wild transformation, you have got to read the book. We've dropped the Amazon link to buy it right in the description below. Trust me on this one. It's a story you are not going to forget.